Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. We've got two guests this evening. First of all, Michael Horn will be on to talk about the Billy Meyer case, and then the second hour we will have Sheldan Nidle on, and he's going to talk about several interesting things. I think my producer has just called in. I want to verify that we've got connection with Revolution Radio. Keith, are you there?
Yes, I am, and they're still running promos on Studio B, but I want to bring it in pretty quick because we're going to go live before too much longer, and okay. I'll bring Michael Horn in anytime you want.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and bring the studio in, and we'll listen to the promo.
So, doing it as we speak.
Exopolitics is on at 10 p.m. on Revolution Radio.
That's us.
Great.
Each Saturday night on Revolution Radio.
Hi, this is the voice known as Terry Tesselman. Have you ever thought about how this is like a farm? The food comes with daily recommended allowance, just like any other farm animal. If you get out of line, you get prodded, slapped, or killed if you're too much liability. And if you are not earning your keep, you can find yourself in prison for non-payment of taxes or child support. If you're tired of being a farm product, join us every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Studio B, and Saturdays, 6 to 8 p.m. on Studio B, right here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Once again, time for Ohio Exopolitics Radio with your host, Mark Snyder. Join him with his ongoing research of the facts that we know on.
Hello. Hello there.
Hey, Mark.
Hello.
We are live on air, and we've been joined by Michael Horn. Go ahead and start with anything, and we'll then join our guest.
Okay, that's great, Keith. Thanks.
Sorry, I didn't say that well. I'm still not used to producing this show. I apologize. Go ahead and start out with whatever you want to say, and Michael Horn is with us now.
Okay. Michael, how are you this evening?
I'm fine, Mark. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound pretty good. The last time we talked, we were sitting in a little restaurant in Sedona. What have you been up to?
Well, I've been up to Flagstaff after Sedona. And Munns Park, today we had our first day of our weekend meetings. And so, I've been cranking away, doing as much as I can to get the word out.
How are the meetings in Munns Park going?
Well, they seem to be growing in interest and in attendance. There were 11, 12 people there today. We've had 15 people up there sometimes. And that might not sound like a lot of people, but, we are in, let's say, a somewhat remote part of the country for most people. We're in northern Arizona, meeting in a place called Munns Park, which is a really, really beautiful forested community. And people come in, as you have. You come in from Ohio We've had people come in also, from Chicago, Texas, Oregon, Nevada, California, Colorado, and some of the people have now moved into the area as well. So we're considering it a bit of a victory.
We've been having regular meetings with another group online. Some really, really good meetings. It almost seems like the information in the Meyer case is kind of becoming maybe more popular. Is that safe to say?
I think so, and my point of view is that it has to become a lot more popular, at least meaning well known, and so that people are hitting their keyboards and searching for Billy Meyer, because the events of the day are catching people's attention. But what hasn't yet caught most people's attention is that most everything that's unfolding right now, to say nothing of what's been going on for 50 years, has been foretold specifically by Meyer, and it's so uniquely important. It trumps any and all of the other sources of information, and certainly any of the other phenomena that is seemingly going on out there. This is about our future survival. Literally, I've been hammering away at that for 10 years now, since I put out the DVD called The Meyer Contacts, the key to our future survival. It is literally that. And the more people that will at least search for the information and start to look into it, the better chance we have of mitigating some of the grief that is upon us and on its way. And this is not going to make sense yet to a lot of people at the moment, but I guarantee you within the next year, those people who are finding the Meyer case are going to be saying, why didn't we know about this before?
There are two writings I think of right off the top of my head, the Goblet of Truth and the Hanok Prophecies, that talk about the time that we're entering into, and specifically the Goblet of Truth talks about this age as the third millennium, and even back as far as Billy's first contacts with his first mentor, Svath. Svath even talked about this time that we're heading into. So can you give us a little overview of some of the prophecies that you've seen that have actually started to come to fruition?
Sure. I mean, we can go back to the late 40s, 1951. Start of 51, Meyer foretold unnatural man-made climate change. He foretold the increase in frequency and intensity of all forms of climatic, environmental manifestation that would be destructive. Storms, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis. He started to warn about that in 51. In 58, he specifically foretold climbing global warming. And in that letter from 1958, full of prophetic information, he foretold the 2 U.S. wars with Iraq. He actually mentions them in 2 separate paragraphs. He named AIDS by name as a coming epidemic. He foretold things like plastic credit cards and portable cell phones. Indeed, he even specifically spoke in 51 and 58 of every home having a computer and a television and being electronically interconnected, the media around the world. He was talking about the Internet 60 years ago. And foretelling in 1958 the coming European Union, and that the European Union, along with the United States of America, would lead the way in biometrically chipping every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth. This is underway. It is being slipped in and promoted as some trendy and necessary thing. It's going on now. He also stated in that prophecy that if people did not stop this, we would have a world of completely enslaved people. This is not about the nonsense worrying about the Illuminati and the imaginary alien grays and all this other bilge that people chase their tails on. It's about what is going on right now, the invasion of privacy that is going on right now. And he's foretold so many specific things. When you get into the Hanok prophecies from actually 1981 and 87, Myers foretold these Russian military movements. Back then, specifically, he's foretold the Ebola epidemic mentioned in the 1987 Hanok prophecies, the Ebola epidemic. For anybody that hears about just this much of it right now, let alone everything else that is going to come to the U.S., I mean, in 1987, he also, talked about the destruction of the World Trade Center by terrorism. If people still want to pretend that there are gray aliens and reptilians and all of this utter nonsense that they chase their tails with, and not wake up, flush all that junk from the UFO community down the toilet, wake up and realize that this is real. There really is an extraterrestrial race that's been in contact with Meyer for over 72 years. There's nothing to do with nonsensical imaginary grays and reptilians, which, at best were the androids, the grays were the androids from the Roswell crash, and any of these alleged ET forms now are simply products of cloning and stuff is being done by the secret military entities, which, of course, are responsible for most, not all, but most of the sightings of UFOs are simply secret military craft. People are so concerned with texting and playing with their iPhones and being online, interacting over nothing and seeking entertainment, that they are like frogs in the proverbial pot of water. The only difference being that people are turning up the heat in themselves, boiling themselves in this enslavement by wasting their time with all of this utter nonsense.
Let me read a little something here from the Goblet of Truth. It says, all the catastrophes of all kinds triggered by the human beings of Earth, and in the final analysis also by the vast and irresponsibly cultivated overpopulation, are casting the world and the entire population of the Earth into the abyss from which it will be very difficult for them to work themselves out. And one of the side effects of the overpopulation is the depletion of our aquifers. One of the aquifers in the United States in the Great Plains that has been depleted is the Ogallala Aquifer. It's one of the world's largest aquifers. It underlies an area of about 174,000 square miles and covered South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas. It's being depleted. It used to be 240 feet deep, average depth. Today, the average depth is 80 feet, and in a lot of places, there's no water there at all. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture is saying that 60 years or so, maybe sooner, it will be completely uneconomical to farm this area. Have you experienced any water shortages in Arizona, Michael?
No, not where I live. Haven't heard of it. You also, by the way, have the Central Valley Aquifer in California, both of which are losing a combined 15.6 cubic kilometers of meters. I guess it would be really. It could be killing due to of water, business farming and everything else. But here's another thing that you may not know. The city of São Paulo in Brazil, that has a population of approximately 11.25 million people. Right? It is just, I think it's just south of the rainforest and all. They may be completely out of water within 2 months.
Really?
That's no joke. They are already having social unrest and concern, and they're having to truck water in and what have you. Now, in some outlying cities, they're already having minor riots and people are burning things. Of course, because no water, so what kind of brainlessness is that? How are you going to put out fires if you don't have water? Right? And here the problem is that the rainforests have been so damaged that now the clouds that would normally be moving down to bring water to Sao Paulo and that region are not able to do it. The rain is falling mainly back into the rainforest, which of course the idiots are continuing to decimate for soybeans or herding cows down there for burgers or whatever. This is so critical because not only is the rainforest critical to Sao Paulo, it's critical to the entire planet. And the politicians in Brazil are bought off. That is a country riddled with corruption. It's an institutionalized problem. And even while now these people down there are suffering this and could be on the verge of enormous chaos, they continue to plunder the rainforest. And you talked about the aquifers, and that is from farming and all the related other uses of water, which are because of the overpopulation of the planet. Now a lot of New Agers get all nervous and start screaming about the evil elite wanting to depopulate the planet. Well, I don't know about that, but we are so badly overpopulated that we're killing ourselves off with the overconsumption, the pollution that is produced by, the extra, there's over 8.3 billion people on the planet right now, and of course, the huge contributing factor is methane from animals such as cows that are produced to feed us. And this is because we refuse to recognize that we human beings are overbreeding. This, of course, is perpetuated by none other than the Catholic Church, as well as various governments in countries that are openly dominated by the Church, and a lot of them, of course, in South America. So people worry about being abducted by aliens and evil reptilians and all this utter garbage, while the real problems are not being dealt with. We are on a planet that has a finite amount of space. If you invite, as an analogy, you invite people into your home who keep inviting other people into your home, who keep inviting other people into your home, how long does it take, and in terms of a home, this is a matter of days and weeks at the most, before the space is all used up, strife is created amongst the people in this environment. Who's going to be able to feed those people? You can't even dispose of all the waste. That is the microcosm of what this planet is and what the situation is. So we are foolishly, stupidly perpetuating, allowing this, and doing so with the let's call it the blessings of the church, of the mega corporations, of politicians and all, who somehow think that they are not going to be affected by this and turn a blind eye to the real consequences. Are there entities, people, meaning by that, and I don't mean otherworldly, but are there people and groups that want to decimate populations for evil reasons? I mean, they probably do exist. Are they, using diseases and other things? Well, maybe, but we have such overpopulation that any naturally occurring epidemic is going to run wild. We don't have the wisdom, the common sense to shut down immediately flights out of countries where we know these things are sourcing. And that's done for economic reasons. So, Mark, you can just see this is just one bit of rampant stupidity, and it's institutionalized.
Let me read a few little statistics for the people listening so they'll get a better appreciation for what we're talking about. Roughly 4 million people are born on the street and die on the street in India every day. 18 million, isn't that incredible? Think about that. 18.
Is that accurate per day, really? 1 million people per day?
Well, maybe that should be
that sounds like
every year, I would say, would probably be better. 18 million people starve to death every year in the world. There's a net gain of 9,000 newborns. And this is per hour, and I'm pretty sure about that statistic. And that's also a mind-boggler. Let me tell you about Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a country the size of Ohio or the size of Iowa. Now, the population of Ohio is 11.5 million. Bangladesh has a population of 167 million people. A little country the size of Ohio. That's more people than are in Russia. 10 million people, 10 million children die every year from starvation or starvation-related diseases. The world population grows by 77 million people annually. So anyway, the guy I've been having on the show that's the population expert is Frosty Wooldridge, and he'll be back on the 15th. And he'll give us some more amazing things. He travels around the world on his bicycle, and he said he's been to these places, for example, like China, where the rivers just run with sewage, and the people just live in just horrific circumstances. So I think the problem is that the people in the United States and Canada, we haven't really seen it yet. We don't know how really bad it is in the third world. What do you say to that, Michael?
Oh, we don't. I mean, the news here, of course, is managed, and in order to get a lot of complete news, you have to really, go to other news sources. Now, I don't watch TV, but I'll go on and check stuff on Drudge Report, but then I'll go and find stuff that's, on other websites, or maybe stuff from Al Jazeera.
Did we lose you, Michael? Or did we lose me?
Mindset. And people shouldn't be disturbed by reality because it's not quite so pretty. But we, just because we lie to ourselves and try to conceal stuff doesn't mean we're not going to be affected by it. This is the irrationality that is so widespread. Lying does not make problems go away. It actually simply compounds the negativity that is eventually then upon us because we didn't deal with the lie. And, of course, concealing the truth is to lie. And news and the media and the government and all that kind of stuff is just ripe with it. I want to also insert the idea here that if we really looked at the material in the Meyer case, it goes back into the history of humankind, and you're going back, to some of the history 22 million years ago and what have you. When we start looking at least the way it's put in the Meyer case, the history of humanity, the people in the Lyra system, giant warrior types with great technology and even spiritual power, and the zillions of years that they raged around the universe, dominating whole other worlds. Apparently, there are a lot of inhabited worlds out within their reach, and that they went and dominated and controlled and enslaved, and then they would war amongst themselves. They would blow themselves to smithereens, and then they would bring back their technology, and they would do it over and over. I mean, this is the human legacy of evolution through ignorance that is not just pertinent to today, in the sense that this is all just happening now. The problem is we know nothing of our true history. We know nothing of the real damage of religions that have compounded everything so greatly on this planet and prevented us from evolving and knowing our true history, evolving our space travel, freeing ourselves from domination and stupidity. And the religions and the sects have institutionalized belief-based control over people's minds. And it isn't simply hyperbole to bring this up. It is a matter of, if you start to analyze and look at what religious belief systems are, they are never to be proven beliefs that have people depending on an outside imaginary deity or other to save them from sins that, of course, in many cases they never committed, and in other cases like we have for their stupidity. And you throw all of this into the mix. And then you look at the mission that the Meyer and the Plejarians have embarked upon, trying to get us to straighten ourselves out so we don't destroy ourselves. This is literally what this is about. It isn't a fairy tale.
I think you're breaking up a little bit, Michael.
I don't know why he's dropping out.
I'm sorry?
You were dropping out a little bit, Michael.
That's good. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. You mentioned the Lyrians. Why don't we start at Nocodamian? Are you there, Michael?
Well, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not changing anything here, so I don't know, if anything is diminishing with the Can you hear me?
We're getting some weird background noise every once in a while.
There's nothing going on here. I'm in a super silent place, actually.
Okay.
And I'm using my best Skype connection. Maybe speaking about these things kind of steams the line up a little bit or something. I don't know.
Can you tell us about Nocodamian?
Well, I can, without it going online and kind of having to actually read the stuff, I can simply say that Nocodamian is someone alleged to have been a monumentally important and evolved being going back, I think, something like 85 billion years, maybe somewhere in there. You might have the info in front of you, who was a leader and a creator even of races, of beings, who went through the evolutionary process. The first spirit form, the first person in his various incarnations to actually go and evolve into the Arahat Atasato level, spiritual levels. And it was that he had, as I said, created races and gotten people moving into alignment with creational laws and the truth. But over time, it's said in this material that his peoples, if you will, started to go astray and create chaos and veer away from the creational teaching and turn into, warriors and lunatics and what have you, and that this was what compelled, if you will, a return of his spirit form from the totally spiritual plane, where there were no bodies or anything else, into the the material universe to start incarnating again, so as to once again get back in touch with his people, the peoples that he was connected with, and to get them straightened out. And he, I think, also did that through high tech. He created peace combat warriors and even android and robotic warrior forms to have to deal with setting things right and putting down these rebellions and all this kind of crazy stuff that was going on, probably a la Star Wars on steroids. So his decision, his volunteering to come back as a prophet as well, to come back and to once again teach the laws of creation, and in some cases, as he did as Nocodamian, when he came back into and with as Enoch and Enoch and all this stuff, creating peace combat troops, and ending up here with this mission on Earth with a lot of people from the Lyran, if you will, star system, because there was so much of this warrior tradition that was carried over by these Lyrians or Lyrans, pick how you want to call them. So what we have today to try to convince us a little bit is Billy Meyer is he's the personification of the final prophet for Earth. There have been 6 previous prophets, all of whom are enlivened by this Nocodamian spirit form. So we had Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, and Muhammad prior to Meyer, and they have all been carrying the same teaching, the same message, But all of these previous prophets suffered from being limited in how they could spread the teaching in world times, in our epochs, when very few people could read or write, and when the majority of people would only pass on this information word of mouth or for the few scribes that would, take it down at different times. So this teaching and this, direction for humanity was corrupted into religions over and over again. We have Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, all that stuff. Now, the Hinduism and other religions weren't part of this tradition, but they suffered as well from, corrupted versions of true spiritual teaching and what have you. So, in this day and age, the last prophet for Earth is Billy Edward Albert Meyer, who, because of our current technology, can put down, in a preserved form, the original teaching of creation. The Gospel of the Truth has versions, as presented by the previous prophets and by Meyer himself these days. So how are we doing with that explanation?
That's real good. Can you tell us what the human spirit is, Michael?
Well, I guess I could try to just put it into the simplest terms that I'm, qualified to, conceptualize it as. This universe in which we live, this creation, is a conscious intelligence. This intelligence has a material body, if you will, in terms of this material universe that is in the third or fourth belt of the egg-shaped creation. Most of this actual creation, the real full creation, full universe, in this seven-belted system, is not material form stuff. It's fine energy, emptiness, what have you. So the creation, which is the creative source and sustainer of everything within its creation and within this universe, within this material belt, it gives a part of itself, the spirit. Let's just work with the human spirit here. That is a kind, you can think of it as a holographic part piece of the creation, a tiny little fragment of it that has the potential over many millions, indeed billions of years of human evolution, of reincarnating over and over in new personalities each time. It has the potential, each spirit does, to remerge with the creation over all of these billions of years and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of incarnations. That means that the spirit locates itself, it attaches to the embryo on the 21st day, and then the fetus is, now at a point that the play on and say this is a living being here, human being. Part of that time it is, the material of life, but it's not yet a human being. So it ultimately resides in the center of the brain, and the soul, which people talk about, is a very temporary construct. In the Mayan material, it's really referred to more as the psyche, based mainly around the solar plexus. But the human spirit is, the eternal, ever reincarnating aspect of a human being. We are, in each lifetime, a separate personality, a new, evolving life form. Here for as long as we are in each lifetime to learn through trial and error, to evolve, so that the spirit gains the benefit of the knowledge and wisdom of the totality of each life. When we die, the spirit moves into what's called the beyond, and it processes all of the information of the personality from the psyche in what's called the comprehensive consciousness law. All of that is processed. Information, of course, is stored elsewhere. We can talk about it another time. But the human spirit then is, in effect, readying, if you will, in an unconscious way for the next incarnation, to reincarnate as the next personality, which will really have no direct connection to the current, or in that case, past personality. We don't come back as a variation on the theme of Michael and Mark, or Joan or Jane or anything. And this part of this whole law of creation, reincarnation, is hard for us to deal with because as personalities, we get attached to who we are experiencing ourselves as in each lifetime. And so we think about how we're going to continue when we come back. Except if we realize, well, we are back, but we don't remember who we were before. People think that they do very often, but according to the teaching in the Meyer case, it's completely erroneous. We don't remember who we were, the past lives. So when people are talking about, well, I got a past life regression, basically we're dealing with material that is, for the most part, 9% of the cases, is just stuff that's in our un- or subconscious that we've accumulated in this life as beliefs, as stuff we fabricated from reading stuff, hearing stuff, even unconsciously, just picking up stuff. Now, there are, even say in Market, there are circumstances where sometimes a child has a remembrance of a past life, but also a lot of the time when past lives are accessed, and someone could say, see, there's the grave for that person, that we may have just as well picked up the past life of someone else, not even us. So, according to the material in Meyer case, we don't have a conscious connection, and we don't have a sequential kind of personality connection. This will bother people, but think about this. Depending on how old you are, this can be more or less meaningful to you. If you're only 25 years old, and I say to you, well, do you remember who you were when you were 6? And a lot of people, of course, will, but you will still, the difference between 6 and 26, let's just say, while we can go, yeah, that was really a whole different person, it's a whole other realization when you get to 36, 46, 56, 66, 76, and you're looking back at a 6-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old, because then you can really take in and realize how different you really are. Sure, there's a continuity in this life. Sure, we can, feel very much more connected. And some people live lives that don't have as much overt change as others do. There are many people, you can run into people who are very comfortable. Yes, I've been doing the same thing for the last 47 years, and Ed and I have been married for 62 years, and we haven't changed it. That does happen. And that's fine. I mean, there are people for whom much change and evolution and difference and growth, stretching themselves doesn't happen. But it'll happen over time, and in the next lifetime there's somebody else, and there is no connection to who they were in this lifetime. But there are things that can be and are unconsciously accessed, from certain information of past lives, talents, information, abilities, what have you. That's another story. So the more we get into this, the cosmology, if you will, that's presented in the Meyer material in the spiritual teaching, then we can keep studying, and unfortunately in English we don't have that much. We have more in German. So we're limited in terms of what we really can know if we only have the English available. But if we start to think about all of this stuff consciously, it can open up an awful lot of territory in our minds as to what reality is, what life is about, who we are, what our destiny is. And this is why, in the Meyer case, we're directed to the spiritual material, the spiritual teaching. Once we kind of wake up, okay, the UFO stuff's real, that's fine, and here's the prophecies and predictions, and we're stumbling along, making sure all that stuff happens. What's the point here? Well, get spiritual teaching so we can what? Learn how to think consciously, neutral, positive, productive thinking, so that we can actually start to change our individual and collective lives.
Michael, before we forget, why don't you tell our listeners about your website?
Sure, glad to do it. Yeah. It's called theyfly.com. THEY, F as in freedom, LY. SpaceX.com, they fly. And here's the deal for you. I have a new film out called And Did They Listen? So if any of you folks out there, if you want to get that film, which I think you'll find quite compelling and fascinating, if you order that film and you just add Mark's name in, or Ohio Exopolitics, or radio show, something in that order, I will send you another complete Meyer film absolutely free. But you have to put a word in there so I know it's coming from you. And, this show will be available for a while, but if you don't act fairly soon, you won't be, getting the offer just because you won't be hearing it. So I would advise you to take advantage of that. It's a free gift. It's 2 for 1, but you just have to, put in Mark or Ohio or free, so I know you heard the show. And you're going to be able to get some very compelling information. It's an award-winning film, and it's so good it got banned at Arizona State University, who refused to show it because it shook people up too much. So get in there and come on over to theyfly.com, and I have a blog, theyflyblog.com, link from it. There's well over 360 posts on that blog, articles, blogs, and you can participate there as well.
So why was your film banned at Arizona State University?
Well, the lovely lady there refused to tell us why it was banned. She simply said, this film will not be shown here. She was the head of something like the religion and philosophy department, and she had this. it was fantastic. She saw the film, or at least half of it or something, and wrote that this film will not be shown here. That's how threatening this material is to people, even in universities, where they want to dumb you down and tell you that the really important thing are all the politically correct actions that we take on campus to make sure that the people that are whose main concerns in life are either some particular cultural, sexual, self-adornment, whatever cause. That's really important. That's what we've got to make a lot of noise about. We don't want people to really be looking at this world with these ridiculous, mind-enslaving religions. It's dead-end politics. It's down the tubes, time for the planet. But we're just not going to let that film be shown here. That's literally what happened. She just freaked out. So, yeah.
That's great. Do you still sell the Meyer books on your website, like the Psyche?
I sell the Psyche and the Might of the Thoughts on the books on my products page there. As a matter of fact, I have a new shipment coming in of the Might of the Thoughts because we ran out of that. And I even, I sell occasionally, I sell some copies of the Photo Inventarium, it's called. It's all in German in text, but it's 617 digitized UFO photos for the folks that like that. I haven't put it up on the site because, I'm not even focusing that much on UFO stuff. I mean, somebody asks me, do you have the book? I say, yeah, I'll get the book for you. But the Might of the Thoughts and the Psyche are the really important stuff. They are what we have to start really focusing on, learning, getting our heads straight here. If we don't learn how to think, we will be enslaved. Here's what people have to realize. The so-called elite, the dark forces of the planet, guess what? They actually know how to think. They know that how to pick their agenda, promote it, follow it, and make it happen. In the meantime, people are being doped and worrying about the Illuminati and the reptilians. He says the reptilians. And so people get all bent out of shape and fearful. They don't get empowered through this stuff. Pardon me, folks. Exopolitics, MUFON, Open Minds, all of this stuff is a bloody waste of your time. There is no process of progress involved. Has MUFON enlightened us about anything in the past 45 years? Not a single piece of actual verifiable extraterrestrial evidence has come through MUFON. Can you imagine that organization is still in business, pumping out chase lights in the sky, join us, and run around and chase UFOs, which are mainly secret military craft? Exopolitics, Stephen Bassett, Michael Saul, and the rest of these people who basically actively suppress the Meyer material. Stephen Bassett's got another dog and pony show going on in Washington. Disclosure. Send faxes. That is such an insult to your intelligence. The fact that you're not faxing Exopolitics, telling them to go take a friggin' hike, and demanding that they bring the Meyer case, forward and not talk about anything else. Stephen Bassett knows it's real. He's told me to my face he knows it's real. But he will not mention it anywhere, because then his precious little cash cow, his self-serving, self-glorifying little charades in Washington where they actually have to pay Congress people to show up, that's all over if he mentions Meyer. And you folks start going to your keyboards, Bill Lee Meyer, let's find out about that. Yeah, you run into some of the skeptic stuff, and then you start finding the truth. You can prove it, the Meyer photos yourself. We have it on my website, my blog. You can prove it yourself. So all of this stuff with UFOs, if you pay attention to UFOs anymore, you are kidding yourself and wasting your time. And I welcome anybody that wants to argue about that or challenge it. I'm not going to yell at you. There's just no value to it. None. You're participating in the cover-up. The UFO cover-up is only about the Billy Meyer case. It's not about Roswell. There's nothing left of Roswell. It's a real thing. There's nothing left. Can't force anything. Can't prove anything.
Didn't you make some headway with MUFON for a while? What happened?
Well, yes, I did. To the degree that they actually finally put the Meyer case up in their famous cases file on their website. They wouldn't put it on their front page. Jan Hartson, the director, said to me, well, we can't tell people to believe that it's real. I said, you're not being asked to do that, Jan. Your front page has got lights in the sky and drawings and absolute nonsense. How about you put the following up? New UFO report, 74-page report on Billy Meyer case. You don't even have to use the words true, accurate. Just put it up there so your people would go and look at that. No, they're not going to do it because, you see, MUFON hierarchy, their executive board and their science review board, these are all people that are basically paid off to toe the party line. MUFON is in league with CIA and State Department. This was exposed already by a guy who has a top secret security clearance, who works at Area 51, who works in the space industry, aerospace industry, so he knows this. And so MUFON, we're really not connected to all that. Yeah, we'll put it on. We'll put the Meyer case up on the famous cases site, but we're not going to mention that on the front page of MUFON. Why? Because that kills your cash cow, MUFON. It means that there is nothing of value on the MUFON website other than the Meyer case now. But they're not going to bring it to attention. It's for the same reason that Exopolitics won't, for the same reason that Open Minds not only won't bring it forward, that they'll attack it rather than let people know that it's legit. The UFO Congress now, which is owned by Open Minds, they're not going to host a nice big open presentation on the singular authenticity of the Billy Meyer context. They're in bed with people like John Bigelow and others. You've got, funneling information into the aerospace industry and to the intelligence industry so that people will, we're going to show up and chase their tails and meet the speakers and have cocktails and go home and have evolved nothing. If this is what people want, if people want to stay stupid, stay with the UFO community. They are guaranteed they're going to keep you stupid. If you want to bust out of that, challenge it.
Can you tell our listeners who FIGU is?
FIGU is the volunteer organization in Switzerland, as a group in Switzerland that is working with Billy Meyer to disseminate his information, the spiritual teaching, the books, all this stuff. They are volunteers. It's a nonprofit, group, and what they do is they assist Billy in their spare time. They come and they work and help out so that this information can go out around the world. And it actually is. It's in a bunch of other countries. This is the only large country that we are that's basically brain dead about this. We want to stay entertained, but everywhere from Russia to Iran, even now China, there are people in those countries now that are receiving the Meyer material. They're checking this out for themselves slowly but surely, and FIGO is responsible for just doing that.
Well, we're starting to get some more people on the U.S. side interested, and
yes.
We had a really fantastic study online today. So
right.
it's a little more encouraging than I think it was a couple years ago, anyway. Do you plan on going to Switzerland anytime soon?
Well, if I would go, I wouldn't go in the winter. I mean, it's bad enough. I'll have enough winter here in Arizona. I don't think going to Switzerland, because I like to work on the property there, and I'd like to, go around and working on the property there in the winter is not exactly, an easy thing. I have to leave that to my brothers and sisters that are doing that on a regular basis.
Now, don't you have a movie that's partially done or almost done that you did last time you were there, and you haven't released it yet, right?
That should literally within the next 2 weeks, if we are on target, that will come out. And we're probably going to make it as a download off our Discovery site we have. It's going to be about 30 or more questions on the spiritual teaching in everyday life that Billy answers. So nothing else but Billy answering those questions.
Well, I'll be looking forward to that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Billy's
I'll
always
let everybody know.
Yeah. Maybe you can even come back on before too long. We can talk about it a little bit. Anyway, we've got about 4 minutes left, Michael. If you want to talk about your website or leave a closing thought with our listeners, or I can throw another question at you, it's up to you.
You can throw a question if you like.
Okay, this is a tough one. It'll be hard to do in 4 minutes, but can you tell us what the difference between God and creation is?
Okay. God was a term that was used to describe some of the very powerful extraterrestrials who were here in our past. There wasn't just one God, and in all cases, these were always human beings. These are not the actual creators of the universe or anything like that. But as they were some of them were Lyran, some of them were from other extraterrestrial races that came here, lording it over the primitive Earth people, making all sorts of messes here, genetic experiments, animal-human combinations, enslavement, exploitation, what have you. And they've been toyed with primitive humans over different epochs of time. They represented themselves as creatures. You've got primitive human beings, and suddenly you've got a shiny metal thing that's coming down out of the sky, and these people don't know from nothing, and these guys go, hey, we created for you. Okay. So God always refers to this. This is why it's so insidious, and why Meyer writes about God delusion, insanity. When we say this cultic old nonsense, these are old cults from thousands of years ago with completely irrational information and belief, every one of them. And the creation is, as we spoke before about the human spirit, the creation is the source of all that exists within this universe, which is this creation that burst itself in a big bang, zillions and billions of years ago, and it's only one of countless billions of creation/universes. So we can't really wrap our minds around that. So we have to create an anthropomorphic God, a guy in the sky. It's so irrational that we think that this God, this guy up there, is omnipotent and perfect, but then go and pray to him. And what's wrong with that? Well, if this is an omnipotent, omniscient, perfect, creative being, why are we trying to make it correct things? Well, my life sucks. I tell you, I need God to straighten it out. Oh, my goodness, really? So it isn't perfect. God made a mistake in your life. I mean, it's so irrational and illogical that when you start to break down any of the stuff in these religions, with this what Ramirez calls sky daddy stuff, even with the Catholic Church, well, we've got a bakery over here that makes the body of Christ. You see, and there's a winery that makes the blood of Christ, and you drink these, you eat the sacrament. I mean, This is lunacy. It's lunacy. Now, it doesn't mean that religious people aren't good people or nice people. Some are and some aren't. But they believe absolutely delusional bilge and unfortunately are manipulated by the churches and by the political entities, which are also highly religiously oriented one way or another. So, 4 minutes, I don't know. I mean, we could... The difference is gods were human. The creation is not a human being. It is not a personality. It is a neutral force. It sets everything in motion according to fine and specific laws, and it lets us do our evolution. Don't pray to it. Nobody's listening. Ain't nobody home. It doesn't intercede. So there's a lot we could say about this.
That's very interesting. So the universal consciousness, it doesn't get angry. It's not jealous. It's not vengeful. It doesn't get involved in human wars or anything like that. But
isn't that irrational? What's there to be jealous of if you created everything? People never think about this stuff. They buy into it.
There's music, Michael. Thanks for coming on. I hope we talk soon. Good day. Bye.
Mark, if you can hear me, I still have no connection with Sheldan. Might want to keep Michael on the next hour. He has accepted my contact. Okay, Michael, then good night, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
There he is. Nidle. It's online.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back. Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past and present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here.
Folks, I was just going to mute the server there for a minute and bring it back. We're going to try to get Sheldan on the line here soon.
Already here.
Hi, everybody. It's me, the Bad, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there's Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, the best, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living.
Okay, I think Keith Roberts has disconnected from my Blog Talk studio. We're discussing things with Sheldan right now. Hopefully Keith will pull Sheldan in and we can get Sheldan on the line. We were having trouble with the server there too. We weren't getting real good sound quality. But I think that Keith will call us back here, and we'll get Sheldan on the line in just a minute, and then we can proceed with the show. Sometimes simulcasting is a bit of a problem. Maybe I'll go back to just pure Skype. I hope you enjoyed the show with Michael Horn. We had some strange sound problems with Michael as well. So we're just waiting for Keith to call us back. And I think Sheldan's going to talk about Ascension this evening. Hopefully he's working things out with Keith right now. I'm going to message Sheldan right now. Then we'll get everyone going here again, and we'll get the show back on the line. I do have some music that I could play. I could also play some clips that you might find interesting while we're waiting for Sheldan to get here. Let me see what I've got here. I've got a little clip on Ebola that you might find interesting, and I'll see what I can do to get Sheldan on for us.
In the meantime, in the United States, a third Ebola sufferer has been transferred to a secure biocontainment unit. The home of the 29-year-old nurse in Dallas has been decontaminated, but one detail was overlooked. For example, the video I should show you in just a moment of her. The nurse being loaded onto the plane there, but as you can see, this plain-clothed man there is walking alongside with no protective gear whatsoever. He's even handed something that looks like a clipboard there from one of the medical workers. And as our U.S. correspondent Marina Portnaya reports, panic is spreading.
Following 3 confirmed cases of Ebola infection and one...
Okay, folks, I think I've got Keith back on the line. Keith, are you there? Hello, Keith? Keith, are you there? Hello, Keith? Keith, are you there? 610? Is that Keith? Ah, boy. Always technical issues. Well, folks, let me continue on with this clip that I just started.
In the meantime, in the United States, a third Ebola sufferer has been transferred to a secure biocontainment unit. The home of the 29-year-old nurse in Dallas has been decontaminated, but one detail was overlooked. For example, the video I should show you in just a moment of her. The nurse being loaded onto the plane there, but as you can see, this plain-clothed man there is walking alongside with no protective gear whatsoever. He's even handed something that looks like a clipboard there from one of the medical workers. And as our U.S. correspondent Marina Portnaya reports, panic is spreading.
Following 3 confirmed cases of Ebola infection and one unfortunate death, U.S. officials continue to insist they have the deadly virus contained and under control. But for many Americans, Washington's reassurance isn't enough. Online sales of Ebola survival kits, including face masks, boiler suits, and safety goggles, have soared amid fears of a domestic outbreak. On Amazon.com, a pack of 10 face masks tells customers the product is recommended by the World Health Organization for protection against Ebola. But while businesses are cashing in on a panicked public, anxious consumers are likely to be wasting their money. Medical experts have repeatedly stated that Ebola is not airborne, which means face masks serve no protective purposes. The World Health Organization says the virus is only transmitted through bodily fluids such as sweat, blood, vomit, or feces of someone showing symptoms. Rick Peedley has been selling protective gear in his online store, mostly to construction firms, for over 3 decades. He says sales of particular products have spiked over the past few weeks.
This has been a little bit unusual in that it's not just one thing. We sell masks, much more expensive masks, and as well as the suits and gloves and so forth. So people are really putting together a PPE kit. You know, they're trying to protect themselves from what is perceived to be a threat.
Meanwhile, somewhat mixed signals have been coming from Washington about the virus. President Barack Obama says the dangers of contracting Ebola in the U.S. are extraordinarily low. But on the other hand, America's leader has publicly admitted that his government must monitor Ebola in a much more aggressive way. Marina Portnaya, RT.
Okay, I'm trying to get in touch with my producer I am going to turn everyone on the switchboard on just briefly and see if we can get in touch with Keith that way. Hello, Keith.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
All right. Is your prefix, are you 610?
I don't know because I don't have a dedicated Skype number.
Okay. Do you have...
We did it an hour ago.
Hello? Hello, Keith? Keith, are you there?
Sheldan, I'm here. We are good to go.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Mark, now?
Yeah. Okay. Very, very good. I've got just a filled up switchboard here, so I didn't know which number you were.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll work it out. This is kind of a different way of doing things than I'm used to. But I've got Sheldan, and we've got to grab the studio. I mean, like right now.
Okay, let's do it. Keith is pulling the studio in, I think.
Yes, I think we are on live.
Oh, excellent. Sheldan, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me, Mark?
Excellent. It's wonderful to hear your voice, and you're coming in so clear. We had Michael Horn on the line there, and for some reason we had real bad Skype quality. So how are you this evening?
Okay, how are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing fantastic. And why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about your website and any webinars you might be offering?
Sure, I would be glad to. So that people know my website is, we're at www.paoweb.com. And if you go there to where it says updates on the website, just click on there, and you will see how to get into the website's webinar. And the webinar this time is called Gaia, and we'll be talking about how things are doing on this planet and what is really happening. And we're also going to be talking about the Galactic Federation and First Contact and our future as oneness with universal consciousness, in other words, full consciousness. And so, usual eclectic and full amount of various things that are happening. Now, for the dates of it, Thursday, November 20th, it'll be at 6 Pacific Standard Time, and then again at 12 o'clock on Sunday, the 23rd of November. And so each one is about an hour and a half. And it's only $15. So we would appreciate people coming and getting some information and finding out more what I'm about and what the webinar is about.
Are we going to the inner earth to become fully conscious beings?
Yes, we are, Mark. Eventually we are. What is happening on our planet right now is this final little struggle between the light and the dark cabal, as I like to call it. And that right now is coming to an end. There are a lot of agreements happening around this planet, which are, I call it the beginning of a partial surrender for the dark cabal, which will eventually lead in a little bit farther down to its defeat. So I am very positive that some amazing and wonderful things are very close to happening.
And how are we going to get to the inner earth?
Okay, when contact happens, and that will be roughly, we will get about 2 months after this new government comes in, we will get the formal announcements that will end and bring in full disclosure. And after a result of that, when that 2 months comes up, there will be announcements from the Galactic Federation, and they will be putting out a schedule at that time, which will allow us to know exactly when. And they talk to me, it's probably going to be about 14 to 16 months before then, because we have to go through a preliminary period which will allow us to understand what full consciousness is about, get used to having them around, and just be able to be more welcoming to them and get rid of our xenophobia. You know, we've had years and years and decades of alien invasion movies, alien invasion television programs, alien invasion comic books, alien invasion magazines, and of course radio. So what we need to do is clear the deck and understand that these wonderful beings are our ancestors. They are our space family. We'll also be, when we become fully conscious, we will meet our spiritual family. So what is really here is first getting used to it, and then after that, we will go to where we become fully conscious, which is to go into inner earth. And inner earth is, of course, far down beyond this. It's 800 miles down, and inner earth looks pretty much like here, except it's a lot more beautiful and pristine, and the energy is incredible. And, of course, they have crystal cities, and there are crystal cities that they have built just for us, a ton of them, so that we can go into our crystal light chambers at the proper time with our mentors there and our angels and become fully conscious beings after 3 days of a magnificent sleep in which we transform into these wonderful beings of light.
And who is currently living in the inner earth?
The people who are living in the inner earth right now are the Agarthans. And the Agarthans are the only remaining remnant of the fully conscious civilization on this planet, and they are the Lemurians. And if people know about Lemuria, they know that roughly around 25,000 years ago, it was destroyed by the Atlanteans, and they moved into inner earth. And so you had one group on the outside and another group on the inside, and we have maintained on the outside. And what the Anunnaki, who were the people who took over for the Atlanteans, were about was making us believe a whole series of very false effects about our Earth, about Gaia, and about what they wanted to do with this civilization on a worldwide basis. And that now is coming to an end. People are learning a great deal about Agartha, and that is inner Earth. They're learning about who these Agarthans were. They know they're fully conscious beings. And, of course, they have been among us for millennia. And their job right now is to remain as inconsequential in the background until the right moment when they can come forward. Until then, they're just gathering information about us because they can make themselves smaller, lower their frequencies, and allow themselves to be completely able to just go about their business of checking out on us while we don't even know they're around. Because when they lower their energies and their size, they look just like us, because they are us.
So what does it look like in the inner earth?
The inner earth, at the center of the inner earth, is, of course, the central sun, the central crystal core of our planet, and it is glowing. People who have written about it have called it the smoky god because it's always surrounded by a cloud-like essence. And it works as a light source 24/7. And so around it is inner earth. And inner earth, as I said before, looks just like out here. It has lakes, it has mountains, it has rivers, it has oceans. It looks just like, the outside looks just like the inside because the outside is just a continuation on the inside of what the outside is about. So look at the earth and see all the beautifulness of it and think what it would be like if there wasn't pollution, if the oceans weren't contaminated, if life was still teeming in it the way it's supposed to, if all the wondrous lakes and rivers that we once had were not polluted, what would they look like? And if the atmosphere was pristine and pure, and that is basically what inner earth looks like. And it also, of course, has crystal cities, cities of light, where the Agarthans live. And they are, of course, guardian species. Their job is to help us out as much as they can. And what is happening now with the first contact is that when it occurs, the Agarthans will come forth. The people who are part of the Galactic Federation will come forth, and they will begin a program with a mentoring program for all of us that will allow us to get a better idea of what they're about and what we are about to become. And they want to be able to have dialogues with all of us and allow us to fully understand as completely as possible what is about to happen to us. This wonderful change in state of consciousness. We are going to be moving from our limited consciousness in which we age and we die after we're born to a place where we are born, we reach an age of maturity, and then we stay there and we just gather all kinds of knowledge because we will have the ability when we're fully conscious to contact heaven directly, the spiritual realms, as well as the physical realms. And we'll have full access to the Akashic records, which are the records in heaven of all of us and all the many, many life contacts that we've had throughout our lives. And as we look at these life contracts, we'll be able to see a better idea of who we are, where we've been, and get a better idea within each of us of how we fit together in this great unity consciousness, which is one of the things I'm going to be talking about when I talk about the guy with the next webinar toward the end of this month.
Are the evil elites going to go to the inner earth as well?
Only after they've been transformed. The key to changing our planet right now is to take these elites, this dark cabal, as I like to call it, and isolate it till all of us have gone through the changing that we are going to be going through. There's a great deal of knowledge and information, and right now we do not need people to create interference, create doubts within us, and make it more difficult for all of us to get a better understanding of what we're about, where we're going, and how this relates to heaven's plan for this particular planet. So no, they will not be around except at the end. Everybody will be transforming because we have all been part of a great play on this planet where some people have had power and have misused it, and the majority of us have been the victims, as I like to call it, of this, and also had to struggle during our lifetimes in order to better understand how it is that you actually survive successfully on planet Earth. And so that is going to go away. The struggle, the debt, slavery, everything involved with it is going to go away, and this is going to be something incredible and fantastic, and I just can't wait for it to start.
What is a physical angel?
Okay, a physical angel is what I call a fully conscious being. And this is a being as I just described it, being of full consciousness. This is an individual who has completely understood that you are really two levels of beingness in yourself. There's part of the great collective, the oneness, which connects directly to your spiritual essence, which is your heavenly aspect, which is why I call it an angel. And then there is your individual aspect within physicality, which is why I call this a physical angel. So the veil that exists between spirit and the physicality no longer exists for you. You can move back and forth. So you have the ability to use your light body to change into, to create a Merkaba, an energy in which your light body and your physical body merge, and you can then go wherever you want, because the fastest way to go in this universe is the speed of thought. So wherever you wish to go, you will go. And the same thing happens with knowledge. As I said, you have full access to your Akashic records. So you can look with your counselors at all the different lifetimes that you've had on Earth or wherever you have come from in this wide galaxy, because there are 45 main star nations that are human star nations that colonized our planet about 900,000 years ago in Lemuria. So when you look at all of that, you understand that if you look back 900,000 years or even farther back, when you were a fully conscious being in these various star nations, think of all the immensity of records you have. Think of all the growth and wisdom you have created. All of that becomes totally accessible to you and to your counselors, both your heavenly counselors and your physical counselors, because in galactic society, which is what fully conscious beings live in, you have conscious, magnificent, fully conscious counselors who have been trained to look at all of this with you and help you to become a better being, because what we do with each lifetime is we see what talents we have created for this lifetime, and we see how we can take these and allow ourselves to achieve our full potential. In other words, what talents or abilities we have to achieve them in a way that allows not only for us to achieve full potential, but to work with people in society to better understand how we can take any potential problem or difficulty that arises and creatively resolve it. And that's what full consciousness and galactic societies are all about, is growing, becoming oneness with heaven, unfolding the divine plan, and being in divine service to all in heaven that are bringing forth this wonderful and magnificent divine plan and physicality. And that is what we do. The Galactic Federation has come here only because heaven said that it was time for us to become fully conscious, and we needed some beings who were fully conscious, who would be fully dedicated to bringing us from where we are right now to accepting, understanding, and then actually transitioning into being fully conscious beings of light. So this is one of the things that we are learning to do, that we are getting a better understanding of. And as we do this, we begin fully to understand completely what it is that is happening to us. And that's really the key. when you're a fully conscious being, you're living for a long time, like 1,000 to 3,000 years. Think of that length of time. That's hundreds of lifetimes to maybe even tens of hundreds, thousands of lifetimes in that course for the average human being on this planet. But with all the access to the Akashic records, to heaven, as well as to physicality, with the ability to move through and around physicality and heaven at will, we can begin to understand completely who we are, what our role in all of this is, and how the talents that we have can be achieved at their fullest potential to help create and solve any problems that are around us.
Have you ever been to the inner Earth?
Yes, I have. When I was young, I was able, when I was on the ships more physically, to go into inner Earth. And Washta was able to show me the crystal cities, show me the Agarthans, and actually talk with them and be a part of their cities. You know, the Agarthans basically live at two levels. One is these cavern worlds, which are about 400 miles down, and the second level is Agartha itself, inner Earth, which is about 800 miles down. And what they do is they've built these magnificent places at 400 miles, like Tellus, which is probably one of the most famous of the inner Earth Agarthan cities, and also the capital Shambhala, which of course is inside 800 miles down. So what we have here is a magnificent and beautiful place. As I said, it's a 5-dimensional level. It's what this planet will become on the outside once we transition into being fully conscious beings. And we will see just how beautiful and magnificent it is. It takes your breath away when you first see it, because the greens are so much greener, the purples, etc. The atmosphere just glows. It's a magnificent place. And when you meet these beings on their own level in Agartha, you see how dedicated they are to helping us. But there was just so much they could do when the Anunnaki were guiding us on the surface. So they had to agree to what heaven had given as edicts for what they could do and what they couldn't do in their divine service. So they have pretty well stayed in the background. But once we get to contact, that will all change, and we will all get a chance to see this magnificent place, not just when we go down and go to the light chambers and do our transitional aspects, but also we will be able to see it just to know that it's there and to see how magnificent and beautiful it is, and to see that what a magnificent and beautiful place after the transitions on the surface happen that our entire planet will be. And that's what I'm really magnificently and anxiously awaiting, because I really feel deeply that the changes that are happening right now on our planet are going to accelerate. And we're not only going to see a change in our financial systems, both our monetary and how international banking is done, but with the prosperity programs, we're going to move beyond that. We're also going to end the debt slavery that has existed on this planet for millennia. We're going to finally find out a lot of things by how all these events are happening, and we're going to get knowledge for the first time. We're going to get the Ascended Masters to talk to us about the whole nature of spirituality on this planet, and we're going to meet the Galactic Federation representatives, and we're going to get a better understanding of the whole process of how we are moving from limited conscious being to this magnificent fully conscious being. And we're only having this because heaven has given us a divine dispensation to change back to what we were. The fall in reality was just our move from full to limited consciousness. And what they call Eden was really Lemuria and all the things that happened after that. And it did go away, and we did wind up with the Atlanteans as our first masters, and then the Anunnaki after that, the sky gods, which are the remnants of all the various beings that we see in our mythologies. So one of the most important things for us to understand is that there have indeed been weird things in our history. These gods that we see in mythology that are represented in movies and everywhere else, these are real. They were the Anunnaki. They have left now. They are just watching over us, because they are now part of the light fleet that is around us. And they are using their expertise as well to help people get a better understanding up there and who and what we are. We are moving toward a new reality. That's why right now, if you read all the behind-the-lines papers of what is happening and the events occurring, there's going to be a new banking and financial system on this planet. It is right on the verge of happening. It's going to change the very nature of how the power structure on this planet is. And it's a power structure based not upon the traditional concepts, but upon prosperity. That's why these huge amounts of humanitarian and prosperity funds are going to be coming forth, and that's very close to happening. As it happens, we are going to see a great, immense change going on in exactly how we look at our planet and how we look at ourselves as both individuals and as a society. And as this happens, and we are right at the, you might say, the top of the beginnings where it starts to manifest, and we all get to see this happening, it's all about this change in consciousness. And of course, all of us know, and we feel every day, weird, strange things happening to our physical selves. This is part of an immense process of allowing all of us to feel, sense, and understand that we are indeed, above all, beings in transition. And the transition, as I said, is moving from a limited conscious being, a being that's born, grows to maturity, then ages, and at one point transitions, dies, and moves on to heaven. What we're going to be changing to is a being that is born, matures, and then after maturity, continues to move forward and gain in wisdom. And at the proper time, when you feel that your life contract has been fulfilled for this particular lifetime, you simply ascend. You take your body with you, and you ascend at higher energies, and you move back into heaven and review all the things happened in this lifetime so that you can prepare yourself with your counsels in heaven for another lifetime, another moving closer and closer to the perfection that all of us, as being part of the great Godhead of this world, that this is all about. And so what we are doing is we are preparing more and more for transition from limited back to full consciousness. And this is happening bit by bit. And people can see, even though the mainstream media tries to play it up, that all the attempts by the old line governments is failing. There's bankruptcies going on with governments. There's all kinds of economic problems. People who are involved with understanding the economic system realize that it is collapsing and that a new system is ready to take over and end what we have known for a long, long time, this economic system. And it means the end of the fiat dollar of the Federal Reserve. It means a whole new currency is being created for the U.S. government, which will be our Treasury notes. And as we move forward and we understand this and we back things with gold again and precious metals, and we reevaluate the currencies of the world, we bring in new, more transparency banking, we end corruption in government, we create new governance. All of this process is about ending debt slavery, bringing in prosperity, allowing us to transition from money to something much greater than that, which is using our technology to be able to create anything that we need, whether it be food, whether it be housing, whether it be any form of clothing that we need, or even furniture or housing. This is part of a process that is happening. Fully conscious beings live in a world in which the entire concept of who and what they are is based upon understanding where they fit in the divine plan and helping the great creator to unfold this aspect of physicality in which they reside.
So while this change is going on, isn't it true that nothing can live on top of the earth while this is occurring?
When the transition occurs, of course, this entire surface area is going to use the phrase, it's going to totally rock and roll. Yes, people won't be able to do that. That's why it'll happen only when we are in the transitioning mode in our crystal light chambers and in Earth, so we're totally unaffected by the process happening. Now, those aspects of flora and fauna that would be adversely affected by it will be moved into special areas, not on this planet, but near it, so that, in other words, another dimension, so that they can survive. And at the right moment, once this is all finished, the Earth will be returned to its pristine state on the surface. And matter of fact, because of all the changes that will be happening to the surface, Lemuria, Greater Sri Lanka, and Atlantis will be returning. Rivers and streams will be somewhat changed in their courses. There will be inland seas that didn't exist. until ancient times, and then because of the rise, for instance, in North America of the Rockies, they left. This will all be returning. The way the world will look when this is all finished will be amazing. It will resemble a lot of the images that one would pick up on inner Earth. We will once again reunite and reintegrate the surface area of the planet and the inner world of planet Earth, Gaia, as she likes to be called.
So after this change, we won't have anything like pollution, water pollution, air pollution. We won't have the problems at Fukushima and things like that?
Exactly. All that will be gone. It also means that our cities, our villages, our farms will be also gone. We're going to be moving into a technology that moves beyond that. When you understand about the nature of energy, you understand that if you need to produce food that is wholesome, easily digestible, and full of all kinds of nutrients, you produce it by taking energies which are all over the place. These are the so-called dark matter or zero-point energies, and transforming them into whatever you need in matter, whether it's food, whether it's clothing, whether it's housing. And you're going to discover that we don't need to live on the surface of the Earth. There's enough land inside our planet and inner Earth that we can move into inner Earth with the Agarthans and create a society. And that many of us, as the other planets are terraformed and created to their full potential, we can then move inside of Mars, move inside of Venus, etc., and produce societies there. So what we will produce is a brand new star nation, a solar system star nation. What it will be called will be up to us, because we are the inhabitants and we have the right to choose its name. So as we move out into our planetary system, out into the solar system, we will also be moving spiritually out into the vastness of this galaxy and also out into the vastness of all physicality, because we will see that everything around us is then capable of us being one with. And as strange and odd as it sounds, we have to just remember, Arthur C. Clarke created a wonderful image, which I always like to use with this. And he simply said, when any society sufficiently advanced meets a society that is much more primitive, to the primitive society, what the advanced society is doing seems like pure magic. And that's basically what the technology that we are about to encounter will probably initially feel to all of us.
After this huge change on the surface of the Earth, will we ever come back up on the surface, or will we just live underneath the Earth all the time?
Mostly what happens with galactic societies is they tend to live on the inside and let the outside for the flora and fauna to flourish. And all that we do is go to the temple nodes at certain times of the year, depending upon the clans that we live within, and provide ceremony, because our purpose as the guardian race for the planet with the cetaceans is to provide for maintaining of the life forms and sustenance at its most maximum form. And this is something that we will learn how to do, and that we will be able, therefore, to sustain this planet. This planet will actually be a lot bigger than it is right now. It will expand to its full size. It kind of shrunk when we became limited consciousness, because the energies had to move down. But once it moves back up and gets its full life frequencies back, it will be a little bit bigger planet, and we will then be able to see it in its full glory, as we will all the planets that were destroyed by the galactic wars, such as Venus and Mars.
Will Lemuria and Atlantis reappear on the surface? Didn't you say that?
Yes, I did. They are going to. This is part of the process. That's why I said it would be good for any life form to really be on this planet, because we're going to have whole continents rising. We're going to have mountains falling down. We're going to have inland seas being created. We're going to have ice sheets melting. It's going to be a tremendously different place. But, of course, while this is all happening, you're going to get earthquakes, maybe at like 11 on the Richter scale. They're going to actually look like giant ripples, like the ocean would with a wave, going across the land. So you can't live in places like that. Plus all the volcanic action, and all the volcanoes will explode, including the supervolcanoes on this continent and others. And the result is that the amount of energy that is being put forth on this planetary surface will be too much for any living thing. So it will be temporarily evacuated, and for us, we'll be moved into inner Earth so that we can transform ourselves into what we are given the dispensation to do, which is to return to being a fully conscious being.
Who will be living in Atlantis and Lemuria at this time?
When Atlantis and Lemuria come back, they will just be continents filled with flora and fauna, which originally were on these continents hundreds of thousands of years ago. And that's basically all it will be, except for some temples.
There will be some temples, though.
There will be some temples at node points on this entire planet so that we can move forward in the process that I was just describing, which is to create ceremony and ritual that allows for us to keep the energy, the ecosystems of this surface world going, as well as those on inner Earth.
So the people periodically visit the surface to perform these rituals, and you're saying these rituals help keep, like, the flora and the fauna alive?
Yes, they do. They help it. Right now, example of this is the aquatic, the oceanic guardians of our planet, which are the cetaceans, the whales, and the dolphins. One of the things the whales do, especially the humpback whale and the blue whale and a few others, is they provide special song. And people who have studied it have discovered just how this flora and fauna of our planet is magnificently worked. So that way, in the spring, when they perform their own ceremonies with their whale song, they actually help life across the entire aspects of our planet to live. As a matter of fact, in 1971, when they had the first real cetacean conference in Santa Cruz, they found a guy from Central Africa, a shaman king, and they were all interested in why would a man from Central Africa, so far from any ocean, want to come to a conference about whales. And so they gave him the keynote address, and he gave a very simple one. He simply said, they, meaning the whales and dolphins, they are in the sky, they are in the land, they are in the sea, they are life. And he left. He knew, and he was saying succinctly what I've just been talking about. Now, when we become fully conscious beings, we will unite with the cetaceans in bringing forth every spring a way for life to be reborn. And during winter, we will allow energies that permit every creature on this planet to exist and sustain itself. Our task is to be a guardian for our planet. Our task is to allow the magnificent life forms that exist on our planet to move forward, to maintain themselves generation after generation. Our basic number one problem, therefore, is maintaining our guardianship, and we will use our creative energies to always find a creative solution so that we can maintain not only our planet at its full potential, but the entire ecosystem, both in subterranean, on inner Earth, and on the surface, to exist and to flourish.
And how are our bodies going to be changed?
Let's look at the changes happening as we move from limited to full consciousness. The first thing that happens is fully conscious beings have 7 highly active chakras. Humans in their limited conscious state have 7. So you can see right there, you're virtually doubling the amount of chakras in your body and the spiritual essence around you. The other thing that happens, which people who have been studying us, other scientists, doctors, etc., have discovered that we are moving upward in our basic body frequency. This is not just something I'm saying, this is scientific fact. The other thing is there are great changes going on with all of us feel these changes. We feel changes in our heart, strange pulses at times. We get blurry vision. We get strange, unusual headaches. They go away. They come back. We go to doctors about our aches and pains. There's nothing on their machines that says there's anything wrong with us. These things I just like to call ascension symptoms. So each and every one of us is going through certain levels and certain aspects of what I'm just talking about. And as you do this, you discover, if you really look into this deeply, that you are adding the beginnings, the anchor points for new chakras in your body. You're adding the anchor points for new energy fields. People are discovering how the meridians in our body are shifting. They're discovering how our nervous system is changing. So as you look at all of this, and you see from the scientific standpoint what's happening, you see how this is happening on an immense level. And those people who have been studying the heart and comparing it to the energies of the brain have discovered that the powerful electrical signal within the heart is actually more powerful than that of the brain. So we really have two centers for thought. We have a center for logical thought that we know about, and then there's a one for intuitive thought. That's the heart. The heart is about upper emotions, not just regular sadness or upsetness or happiness even, but upon a level even higher than the happiness we normally know. I like to call it ecstasy. And when you reach this level of ecstasy and you reach this level of fully understanding the nature of what's happening, you have tremendous, incredible mirth in you, laughter. That's what I talk about, laughing Buddha. They talk about laughing Christ. All this energy, when it fully reaches its enlightenment mode, changes into this higher energy, this magnificent, fully conscious being. And we ascend. That's what all of us are about. We are moving away from death, from mortality, into immortality, to being beings of immense joy and power, and using this power in love and in light. That's what this is all about. I'm moving away from any concepts about war and hate and all these ridiculous emotions, and understanding basically our inner oneness, how we are one with who and what we are, and being able then to fully understand in a complete and magnificent way with a great wisdom that we are indeed beings who are part of heaven and part of physicality, and that our task is to be in physicality and move physicality through and forward and unfold the divine plan that the Creator has set forth for this area, and use our own wisdoms to bring that forth, unfold it, and allow for all the wonderful energies that come out of unfolding this divine plan. We are then basically in divine service as angels are in heaven. That's why I call us physical angels.
Do the people in the inner earth reproduce the same way we do?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so there are children, there will be children in the inner earth?
There are children. There are children. But when you get into being fully conscious, the whole concept of sexuality, the whole concept of life and procreation, on that is based upon joy and energies that are a lot different. And also when you conceive, you are able to be one with that being as it develops from its conception point to when it's to birth point. So you have an interaction. And also that interaction is not just confined to the parents, but in galactic society there are communities, which I like to call podlets. And these groups are up to 64 people. And they are like an interactive traditional community that many people talk about, that are constantly helping one another. So when you are born and you grow, it's not just your parents that are your primary server of learning about the planet and about you. It's also all these people. It's like having an endless amount of aunts and uncles whose sole purpose is to help you grow, to teach you things. And every one of them works in a way that allows for this podlet to operate in a great unity consciousness. And so you are born within this energy, you grow within this energy, you develop the wisdoms of who and what you are, because they are very similar to the other 64 members of this podlet. And you also learn how to interact with other podlets so that you can move forward and develop your talents. There's a thing that they have, which is fluid dynamics. And what all that fluid dynamics means is when you have a problem, those people with the talents most developed that know how to solve this problem, all of us chip in with them and use our own wisdoms along with theirs to move them forward towards success. And when a different problem comes up, they then do the same thing with those other beings who are part of this podlet and other podlets around them to move forward in allowing for a creative solution to any particular problem or difficulty that our galactic society may at some time encounter.
Well, will we be able to have pets in this new reality?
We will have pets, but the difference is because we are telepathic with every creature on the planet, whether it be plants, flowers, or beings that we will call pets, these animals are no longer just animals. We can talk to them. They can teach us many great wisdoms because they have their own. Every animal on this magnificent world of us has a background as we have of wisdom of past lives and can understand and acknowledge that. Their energies with their elementals are a little bit different than ours, but they understand the nature of how the collective operates, and they will love us and care for us, but they will also at times be very frank with what they think. So no longer are you going to say, well, what does that cat or dog think? You will know. And there will be a dialogue with it. And so this makes for another example of how our dynamic as guardians will operate.
Will we have to work 8 hours a day in the inner earth?
We will just work according to those talents that we are about. Work as we know it on this world right now will not exist. We do things out of joy. Because we do things out of joy with each other according to our talents, we then accomplish what we need to do, and we do it together, and we don't really have a job per se. There aren't really what we might call corporations or companies or businesses as we know it, because the way the society is organized is about maintaining the maximum of our joy, allowing us to be completely sovereign beings operating within one another's abilities, sharing freely because we understand the nature of the unity consciousness that we're all about, but yet working hard to understand within ourselves and within each other how all this energy fits together. We need to understand the great puzzle that is us and the great part of how we fit into that puzzle. And so that is what we do during our lifetime. We grow, we work together, we understand what everything is about, and as we do this, we get a better understanding of exactly who and what we are about.
Before I throw any more questions at you, why don't you remind the people about your webinar again and your website?
Sure. For going to our website, just go to www.paoweb, that's paoweb.com. And if you go there, you go to the update section, and you'll see there at the top of it, you'll see advertisement for our webinar. Our webinar this time is called Gaia, and we will be talking about our planet, why it was chosen as a special world, how we fit in with it, why were we chosen by heaven for this dispensation, which I've been talking about, of moving to full consciousness, how that is being accomplished right now, what is going on, etc. And we'll finish up with explaining to you what unity consciousness is about and how this will operate in this world after first contact. So the dates for this Gaia webinar, which is only $15, and there you'll see how to get in and actually pay for it and get a link so that you'll be able to listen to it. $15 is for both of these. The first one is at 6 o'clock on the 20th of November, and it will go for about an hour and a half from 6 to about 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. The second one, which is not a repeat because I do everyone a little bit differently because both are live, and the next one will be on Sunday, the 23rd of November, and that will be once again on Gaia, and we'll mention again all the things we talked about. And there's usually different questions and answers, and I usually say things a little bit differently. So if you didn't quite get one thing from the first lecture, there are other things that will happen and will be picked up if you listen to both of them. So just remember, it's $15. Go to the website, look where the update is on the website, and remember just www.paoweb.com. And as I said, it's just $15.
In the past, you talked about something called a pre-landing scenario. Does that still fit in with this new reality that's coming?
Well, what is happening here is there's going to be an announcement after the new government. It's about roughly 2 months afterwards. And so they're going to make announcements. They will do some pre-landings, not a great deal. Most of it will be flyovers. There will be some brief landings, but we want to save the massive event for the actual landings, because what we want to do, I mean the Galactic Federation, is allow everybody to get a mentor and understand what the mentor is about, why he or she is there with you. What has been happening to us over these years and decades is that we have been visited at night by Galactic Federation medical teams. These medical teams have been putting together a dossier on how you are changing from a limited conscious being into a fully conscious being. In other words, all the preliminaries that can be done before you get into the light chamber. They then need to go through a process of helping you to understand who and what you are and what is happening to you. Understanding by having you question and be in dialogue with your mentor. So the major point of the landings will be to bring these mentors forth and also to help prepare you over the months that it will take for all of this to sink in, to allow you to go through all the energies, the upsetness, the happiness, etc., because this is going to be somewhat of a shock. And you also need to do some inner work, and that's what the mentors will be doing. They have been trained on how far they can go with each one of you, each one of us, through the dossiers that have been created. What are our likes, our dislikes, what has happened to us, etc. Because being fully conscious beings, they can easily go into our minds and find out, as we go through our nightly reviews, exactly what is happening. So they will take all of that, which they've done night after night after night, week after week, month after month, year after year, bring that forward, and they have created these immense dossiers, and each monitor assigned to us will be thoroughly and completely up to date with all of that. And their major task is to be the interloper between who we are and how we are moving forward. And that is really what is going on here, and that is why we are now in the process of a preparation for this process, and that's why we are now talking. People are talking about RVs, they're talking about changes in the economic system, they're talking about collapse of things like the Federal Reserve and et cetera. What is happening is now we are in the beginning of this massive transition period, which will also include various bringings in of vast amounts of prosperity money. And also when the end of the Fed and these private corporation de facto governments happens, there will be a huge increase in funds, because you will be getting refunds from all the illegal taxation that we have had to go through for a long, long time. And all this will be happening, as well as I said, all the changes happening around us. So what I want to do when I talk about this is have people understand that there is a reason behind why this is all happening now. There is a reason why all these changes have taken a while for them to happen. And so that's what we need to do. And maybe on another show we can talk about all these changes, because we have to go into detail on it. And we don't have, I guess, enough time left to do any of that. But at least we can mention it and make people aware that this process is indeed out there.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back, Sheldan. Are these events going to occur during this next presidency or during our lifetimes, or could you give us a time?
They're in the midst of happening right now. Just know that we're getting very close to these events publicly manifesting around us. We are in the midst of a great change. So we are going to see all kinds of incredible and wonderful things occurring. So just know that it is indeed happening. And right now I myself am preparing for things that are going to happen. So just know inside, with a great deal of assurance, that all the frustrations and all the delays that have happened are finally in their last stages, and things are about getting ready to happen.
I think we have just a couple minutes left. Sheldan, are you able to tell us about some of the preparations you're doing?
What I'm getting ready to do is once all this comes out officially, it shouldn't be that much longer. My job initially is I have a book they want me to write so that people can have a better idea what all this consciousness is about. And the other thing I'm going to be doing is changing the nature of the webinars that I do from talking about subjects to clarify various subjects for people to one in which we start talking about what the meaning of all these changes are so that we can kind of look at the news happening out there and get a better understanding of what this truly means. So that's the next thing I'm doing. And also because I will have more resources to finally put together, because I've been kind of on the bare minimum track here with all of this, I'm going to be actually able to get an office and finally be able to get coordinators and actually build up and create the planetary activation groups that need to happen and start asking people about it, because then I will be able to have coordinators who can do this on a full-time basis and allow all of us to start coming together as a community.
So you think this will happen during our lifetime?
Yes, very soon. Very soon, Mark. Very soon.
And can you talk a little bit more about how we're going to change? Are we going to get taller, healthier? Are some of our wrinkles going to go away? Or
we are going to discover that there is a great deal of technology out there, and that this technology will allow us indeed to start using somewhat, countering the aging process, until, of course, we become fully conscious beings, at which time we'll return to looking like we did when we were 20, 22 years old.
Sheldan, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Have a good day, sir.
Right. Same to you, Mark. I enjoyed it.
Good night.
That's the end of the show, my friends. All right, you guys still